Paul.
Andy.
Kevin.
Go away.
What would you say was your favorite arcade game growing up? Like what you spent the most time on or whatever.
I would say my favorite arcade game growing up was Custer's Revenge. It's
Funny.
Really good game.
That's ironic.
Or Beat 'em and Eat 'em. Oh, wait a minute. Did we start?
Was Beat 'em or Eat 'em a real thing?
No. Well, it was a real game, yeah.
Really?
For the Atari.
That was a porn game?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh my god.
No, my favorite arcade game growing up, and even when I was a young adult too, I would say Galaga. I put in so many hours of Galaga, and it's funny because for how repetitive the game is, I mean it's classic arcade material like Pac-Man or Centipede or Donkey Kong, but it just I was so in love with it. That was my favorite arcade game.
Kevin, what was yours?
The one I probably spent the most time playing was Area 51, the light gun game.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That one, I don't know why, but for some reason I could sink quarters into that fucking game all day and never even notice.
Yep. Mine was either Marvel vs. Capcom or Time Crisis 2. Or actually just the original Time Crisis because the gun kickback, I thought that was the shit, dude. I don't fucking remember. This was fucking years ago. We were babies.
Wait, what's changed?
Hey everybody! Welcome to the Power Trip Gaming Powercast!
It's another Powercast!
That's right! Today we have Kevin on.
We do!
What is this, the dingo and the dog intro?
Dingo and my dog!
It's the dingo!
Oh god, we do sound like shock jocks.
God!
Alright, so...
Terrible, please!
It is bad. I hate those types of intros for those things for
Yeah,
radio.
you do it. Not only do you do it here, but you do it on every episode of the main channel.
Hey, come on! It's entertainment. I have to. Otherwise, we got vanilla ass Paul over here, fucking ruining every intro.
What are you talking about? This is episode 2 of the Power Trip Gaming Powercast.
I was gonna say, all we're missing is a soundboard now.
I got you covered, baby. Just don't ask me to do much past lasers and fart noises, because that's all I got. So, on this episode, we're going to be talking about the fall of the mall. So, recently, I went to Regency Mall in Racine, Wisconsin. I almost said Racine, Kenosha.
No, Racine, Wisconsin.
Racine, Wisconsin, yeah. And oh boy, it killed my heart to go through that mall. So I spent a long time in that mall when I was a kid. We would go to so many stores. Like, my childhood was defined by going to Regency Mall and going into the electronics boutiques, the
Software, etc.
Software, etc.
KB Toys.
KB Toys.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, the blue carpet of KB Toys was such an icon.
Oh, yeah.
Toys R Us, even though that wasn't in that mall.
Mm-hmm.
But just...
It was right next to it, though.
Yeah. Like, I remember the whole
it was an event to go to the mall, basically. It was like you knew that you were going to be entertained like you could not be anywhere else when you went to the mall. There was something for everybody there, which is what is so great about it.
Well, malls basically became like the replacement to like the old school like Archie malt shops. They became the social hub where people went and hung out to be with their friends.
Yeah.
Like, after you weren't hanging out at the diners or at the drive-in anymore, you were at the mall hanging out.
Yeah.
That's why some malls even started building theaters and stuff into them.
Oh yeah.
That's a good point, yeah.
And you had so many, like, different food. You had a whole food court. You had... You're right. And then you had the big stores at the ends.
You had the anchors. You had, like, the Sears. You had the Boston stores. You had JCPenney. Yeah, you had all those anchor stores that brought people in, and then the kids would just kind of, like, go around to wherever else that there was, like the KB Toys or the video game stores that were in there. So.
Yeah. So the reason I thought this would have been a good episode is because, like I said, I just recently went there. And the first thing I saw just driving around, like, the mall itself to find my parking spot, my usual parking spot in the back, I didn't realize the Boston store had closed.
Yeah.
That was there on the, what is that, East End?
Mm-hmm.
On the East End, I'm like, boy, that parking lot looks abandoned.
And that was in the last couple months. I think that Boston store closed.
I had no clue.
Mm-hmm.
It's been that long since I've been there, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this whole mall looks abandoned. So I pulled my usual parking spot. There was maybe like 5 cars there. Granted, school had just come back into session and all that, but I had to be one of 6 cars in that lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going there as a child with my family, and that whole you had to park way out in the outskirts. Like, that whole thing was full.
Mm-hmm.
And we always had our routine. You pulled in, we went to Aladdin's Castle right off the bat. There was as soon as we entered through that one of the north entrances.
Yeah, it was on the left, immediately to your left.
Yes, you had the Army Recruitment Center. You had our Aladdin's Castle right there with all the arcade games. We would go there, then we'd go down to Software, etc., where we would buy games and stuff, and then we'd go down a ways. There was Mrs. Fields Cookies, which we always stopped and got a cookie to hit Electronics Boutique, and then Spencer's Gifts and all that shit. Man, there was such a routine.
Yeah.
And just seeing it as a shell of its former self it hit me deeper than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I thought, you know what, this would be a good topic to talk about, especially people around our generation. This will really hit home.
Yeah. There was actually, I mean, when I was collecting Star Wars figures, like, I used to be big into Star Wars figures and
your back room doesn't show that at all.
The what?
Your back room doesn't show that at all.
No, not in the least. Not in the least.
Oh, wait. Let me paint a picture for you guys, because none of you'll know this. You walk into Paul's back room. He has a shelf set up that looks like an old toy store shelf, and it is
amazing.
Just packed with Star Wars figures on, like, the metal hooks, and they're just, like, 5 or 6 figures deep, like,
at least
6 high. Mm-hmm. So it's like walking into a toy store.
You got General Grievous? That was a joke from back in our hunting days.
Yeah, but no, I used to be big into Star Wars collecting, and Regency Mall actually used to be like one of the main hubs that I used to go to, because you had Target in the general vicinity, you had Toys R Us around the general vicinity, you had Walmart that was just down the road as well too. But inside of the mall, you had Electronics Boutique and Software, etc., which started selling action figures and collectibles, like especially the Star Wars stuff. You had the KB Toys that was in there. Do you guys remember Suncoast Video?
Yeah,
yes.
Before it became FYE.
Oh my god, fucking Suncoast. I can't believe I forgot about it.
I know.
It was almost like kitty corner from Software, etc.
I had a feeling you forgot about Suncoast Video.
Yeah.
But yeah, Suncoast Video used to have a bunch of like collectibles in there as well too. It was FYE for all intents and purposes.
It actually precedes it.
Yes, it does.
I remember it was really dark in the store.
Yeah, it was dark lighting, but it was.
Well, it was meant to. It was a whole. The entire theme of the way the store was set up was supposed to mimic a theater.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the entire reason that all of the aesthetic was dark like that, with like the designs that they had on the floor and the walls. It was a theater.
Yeah.
Because that's where you were supposed to go to get your movies after they came out on VHS and then DVD.
Mm-hmm. And then you had like all of the different, VHS tapes. You had DVDs, because around when I was collecting, that was when DVDs kind of started coming into prominence around 1999 and around that time. But then on the outer walls, you had like the action figures, and you had all the different collectibles that they had, and in the middle you had like the random not the kiosk, but the random displays of like candies and different kinds of like treats and stuff like that. But yeah, I would hit all of these different stores. I would then go into Regency Mall, and I'd hit about another 3 or 4 places, just hunting for figures. And I remember running into the Suncoast Video, where the back door, or the back room door, was open, and I could see that they had Episode 2 action figures there, and it was before they were supposed to officially be released on shelves. And I remember just trying to barter with this guy, saying, "Hey, dude, would you sell me that Jango Fett Slave 1?" And the guy's like, "Oh no, we can't put it on the shelf." I'm like, Dude,
Come on!
Dude, come on! I'll give you some money if you just cut it. Like, come on! Nobody's gonna notice. And I just remember just trying to haggle him, and he would not budge.
You know what the sad part is? A couple of my friends that I met through other stuff that I've done, one of them used to be manager there, and then a couple other ones used to work there. So I almost wonder if it was him that you were bargaining with.
It may have been, but he had a good. He didn't barter for anything, so he had good integrity.
Good for him. But I remember when I first started getting into Magic cards. When I was a freshman in high school, I used to go to Electronics Boutique down the way. They used to sell Magic cards right behind the like the cashiers.
Yeah.
And I remember for the longest time seeing Suikoden 2 there back when it was only $50.
No, brand new. It was probably $39.99. The average game was
could have been.
Yeah, the average game was $40 for PS1.
But I remember just the way they had their shelves set up, and I remember seeing Suikoden 2 very vividly, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. And now how many years later you see it and it's 125 easy.
Yeah.
That kind of shit. Like that to me is where like our childhood like kind of transcended, where you see the difference between then and now. Was just the games and stuff that you used to see in that mall versus now you see them in like mom and pop stores. Like I remember I bought Resident Evil Gaiden in Software Etc. When it was a thing. But I also remember Software Etc. ended up getting taken over by GameStop.
It did.
GameStop ended up buying them out. My brother worked there for the longest time, and I remember they still used to sell, Nintendo, Super Nintendo,
everything.
all that shit back when you started collecting, and back when we started.
And that was
getting...
around 2003.
Yeah.
So I was collecting Star Wars stuff. That was still my main hobby, but video games were like the secondary hobby. And then a couple years after that, it ended up turning.
Kick that into overdrive for you.
Yeah.
But so back to the original point, I was walking through that mall because I was going to GameStop to buy a gift for my friend Tim, or for our friend Tim. It was his birthday recently. I was trying to find Blade Strangers for the Switch. FYI, that game's damn near impossible to fucking find physical. Jesus Christ! 4 GameStops, I couldn't find it at all. I settled on getting him East 8. I said, screw it, dude. So I felt bad, but whatever. But even GameStop, like the one out by Target here on Highway 50, they don't have shit. I couldn't find anything there.
That's a big part of it. Is their brick and mortar stores now focus more on their Think Geek products than do than
video games.
Than games, because for the type of like store brick and mortar stuff, games don't sell as well as they used to like that.
No.
A lot of people do it either online or by digital at this point, and it's just cheaper for them to make more money off those products that they directly own than it is for them getting all the stuff for the games.
If I'm not mistaken, too, I think there's a little bit more of a profit margin for them selling the Think Geek stuff than there is in the used video game.
Think so?
I would.
Used video games are almost 100% profit. New games is where they lose. They're attacking.
New games. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Actually, is because
used
the profits...
games is almost 100% profit, because if they give you, let's say, $20 for a game, they're going to turn around and sell it for 40 or 60.
So that's wishful thinking.
So it's technically 20. So it's 50% profit then.
Yeah.
Because they had to pay into it in order to resell it. But then there may be some games where they're collecting a game in and paying $20 per copy, but then they get too many in and then they're not selling. And
but it's sports titles.
Exactly, and then they're stuck with that product.
I don't know what fucking universe you guys are living in. I have never gotten a $20 fucking game or credit from GameStop for trading a game.
I'm saying hypothetically speaking.
Pokemon.
No.
Actually, you're right. Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I got $25.
So you're wrong! Eat a dick!
But trade in anything else, you're lucky to get 10.
Yeah.
You really are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but you're right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even if they turn around and sell that game for 35 used, they still had to give you that 10, so they're really only getting $25.
Exactly. But
it's still more of a profit, because as soon as they turn around and sell it, and if that person ever sells it back, it's going to be at a cheaper price, and then it's just a cycle where they can just make more money. So.
Yeah. But you're right. ThinkGeek honestly saved that store.
Yeah.
When they bought... Did they buy them out? Or
I can't remember what direction it went for who bought who.
But that's a story for a different day, really. That'll be under our physical versus digital debate when we have that episode. But
honestly, actually getting back to like the fall of the mall is... I feel like I'm going through this like this demise of another mall again, because there used to be a mall on near the interstate in Kenosha, and it was called the Original Outlet Mall.
Yep, I remember that.
And I had spent so much time there, and I remember just holidays going there and just seeing the place all decked out, and I have a lot of memories of like happy Christmases and everything, just going there and just random times just going there. And I remember one of the last times that I ever went there is that I guess a lot of stores, and it had been a long time since I'd been there, but a lot of the stores had actually cleaned out, or they had moved out of there, and so there was so many different holes in it that they shifted all of the stores that were inside the mall to just like 1/3 of like the building, like one side of the building.
Wow.
And it really felt like walking through almost like just like a desolate, wasn't really a ghost town, but at the same time there was something just eerie about it, where it's like this place where there used to be just so many happy memories, so full of life, so like just so populated, and now it's a shell. It's
desolate.
like it's desolate. There's nobody there. And I just remember thinking to myself, if this place closes, that's going to be really sad. And literally within 6 months, that mall closed. And
Really?
then it just became kind of like what you see in like
Yeah.
Google images of like abandoned malls, and they eventually tore it down. But it was just so sad to think that all of this time that was spent and all these happy memories, and it's just completely just wiped out.
Yeah, Regency's going through that same thing where when we were walking through it, it looks like, I don't know who bought that building, but they like renovated it. There's all new carpeting, there's all new lighting throughout, and there's like murals on the walls and shit of like the history of Racine and things like that. But I'm looking at these, and it almost looks like all of these storefronts were walled over.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're rebuilding the mall, why would you wall over all of the storefronts? Because they don't look removable. There's no seams where you could remove it. Like, everything is just straight on. There's molding everywhere. There was, I want to say, maybe 20 stores in that entire mall total. And that's, if that. Most of them were shoe stores, or, like, there was a store called Jimmy Jazz where they had all, like, just clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there really wasn't. I want to say there were like 4 shoe stores right next to each other of like Nikes and Adidas and Fila and all this. Fila's even a still thing, I don't even know.
Or like hats and stuff like that.
Yeah, lids. There was a lids in there, but it felt like the only outlier stores there were like GameStop and FYE. Mrs. Fields Cookies was gone. There's no food things there. There were no kiosks down the center of the aisles. There was just one Auntie Anne's like pretzel store, and that was it. Otherwise, the entire thing looked gutted.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, why would anybody buy this complex? What did you hope to do with it? Because there's nothing that can be done in a weird, it's, and that kind of hit like a heartstring of mine, where I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like, boy, times really have just changed in our lifetime. And honestly, I think like the advent of the internet, like eBay and Amazon, killed off the mall, or at least the smaller mall. Because you still have Gurney Mills, which is, that fucker ain't going anywhere.
Well,
there's so many big outlet stores there that I don't think they're gonna go anywhere.
Yeah, but at the same time, in my lifetime earlier than that, when even though the Original Outlet Mall had closed down, if you would have said to me 5 years ago that malls in the next 20 years are just going to cease to exist, I would not have believed you. But now, if you're telling me that now, I believe it wholeheartedly. That even the big malls, like Gurney Mills or something like that, I don't think that they're safe. I don't. I really feel like this is going to continue on, and the advent of being able to walk down the mall with somebody or share those moments with somebody else, it's going to be gone.
To be honest, I think the larger malls will actually be able to adapt. It's the small ones, like outlet malls, or the ones that are like the size of Regency, where they can't adapt because they can't afford to.
Yeah, maybe that's what it
That
is.
they are the ones that will suffer and disappear, but the large ones they'll find some way of filling that space, because you have ones like Mall of America.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where how many people actually go there to shop versus to see the spectacle?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think it'll get to the point where they'll, like, the malls start closing down, people will start getting nostalgic for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have those stores that'll be the retro style. Look, hey, we've got a mall. Go see this thing.
Here comes KB.
Yeah. You laugh about that. Actually, KB they came out when Toys R Us went under just recently, and they're trying to push for a to be operating out of malls by Thanksgiving.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
KB,
going- they don't-
God.
KB's one that's trying to make a comeback, and then the other one that's the big one that's trying to make a comeback is FAO Schwartz.
Yeah. But
That's
KB,
right. You were just telling me about that.
But KB will not have any brick and mortar stores, like standalone stores. They're only going to operate out of malls.
Wasn't KB only that way though?
No.
I never saw a standalone KB.
I never did either.
Well, technically the one.
Maybe it's just because around here.
Well, technically the one that was by Kohl's in the strip mall, that's technically, I guess, a standalone store, because that's not like, it wasn't like, it's a strip mall, but it's not.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not actually inside a physical mall, but now they're only going to be inside physical malls.
it makes more sense.
Yeah.
It's probably cheaper, like renting a space in the mall.
Exactly.
Especially if they do it like, God, what's the Halloween store that
Oh,
pops
Halloween
up?
Express.
Yeah, or yeah, Spirit of Halloween, where they basically they rent a storefront
for a month.
They have the Halloween people started like
That's true.
like end of September, early November, and then some of them don't close until into December.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's just cheaper for them to rent a spot, close up shop, move somewhere else, and come back in a seasonal cycle like that, or maybe they can increase their profit margins by doing that.
Yeah.
That's true, because I always remember seeing that Halloween Express or whatever opening up that strip mall across from Regency. If you head, I believe it's south.
Yeah.
Where like that pet store was, and that I believe it was Michael's or something was there.
No, that's east. You're heading east.
Are you sure? No, I'm pretty sure it's south. Because it's not. You remember where that
The mall is here.
Chi-Chi's
it's
was?
south.
By
I know
Target?
exactly where you're talking
There
about.
was that
It's-
small little strip mall.
That's east because you're heading towards Lake Michigan.
No, it's
No, because
not.
22nd Ave is here, the mall is here, Michael's and stuff was over
You're
on this
crossing
side.
Durand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Durand heads east and west, but you're crossing over it. That's
Oh,
south.
I get you. Yes, that is south.
This is a good bit of podcasting.
Sorry. Shut up. I just had to get my bearings straight.
That's okay. I'm weirdly good with directions.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
No, but I remember that Halloween Express used to open up there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the one I always remember opening up is the other side of town where the Dairy Queen is, where you can actually go inside. The Blockbuster over there after they closed.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
on
rented
75th
every
Street.
year
Yep.
by a Halloween store.
Yeah.
And that's why the only reason that building is still there.
Yeah.
That's true. But it's... Yeah, that always... So this whole thing just killed me. Just because I started to get nostalgic for the whole... Like, especially with the holidays starting to come around. Like, I used to have a whole ritual. You got the Funko Land ad, where that had the paper, so that had all the games, so we always used to highlight the games we wanted. Then you had, like, I swear to God, it was like a 20-page KB Toys book.
Oh, yeah.
Of just all these toys, and I remember... like Nerf guns and these just Legos and shit like that, and I used to love going in KB Toys. Actually, fun fact, KB Toys is where I got the original Legend of Zelda board game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it very distinctly, and the Street Fighter one. They had
Oh,
the
I remember the
board
Street
game.
Fighter 2, yeah.
Street Fighter one sucked, but it was still pretty cool because you got to see all the standing figures of
Yeah, that
all
was
the
the Street Fighter 2 board game. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that one.
But we got those at KB. And it started to really sink in that, boy, that...
Well, when you really think about it, too, I mean, the holiday season has changed so dramatically because even when we were growing up, you had, like you said, you had the Funko Land ad, so you could see all the games in the paper, so you could circle what you wanted. You had the KB ad that was just a humongous, like, almost like a catalog type thing. Toys R Us had a similar thing, but in addition to that, you not only had the JCPenney catalog, which had a whole bunch of toys in there, but Sears did their own thing called the Wish Book.
Yep.
Sears did the Wish Book where it was literally just Christmas ideas, it was everything. It was clothing, it was toys, it was video games,
Wow.
everything. And now Sears is basically nothing more than a husk.
See ya.
JCPenney is still, they're struggling, but they're still around. Toys R Us is gone, KB is gone, Funkoland is kind of rebranded as GameStop, and even they're starting to really kind of feel the pinch. They're hitting a wall pretty hard. So
yeah, and so like we mentioned, I feel like eBay and Amazon and just the advent of the internet in general killed off like the small mall. Just because why even bother going to the mall when you can just order it online?
Well, see, and that's
even brick and mortar stores in general. Like, it's hard to justify why you would go out to get it when I can just order it from my house, eating pizza in my fucking underwear.
And that's what Amazon really did, is that they made everything available at your fingertips. You could order everything online, and it would be shipped to you within 2 to 3 days. And nowadays, shipping is getting so seamless and so quick that, I mean, you can order something, and it is literally, you got it there next day.
Well, and see, that's what I was going to say. It's not just the fact that the internet made getting stuff easier. It's the entire way we ship and deliver stuff, like UPS, FedEx, all, it's changed over the years. It used to be they only delivered on certain days, and then it went to, we're every day but like Sunday, and now even some of them deliver on Sundays. So it's the way we consume and send stuff now is just so completely different than what it used to be.
Yeah, everything's at your fingertips. I mean, you don't have to worry about a store being out of a certain thing. Like my problem with GameStop. I can't find this fucking game. I can just go on Amazon and buy it. There are a plethora of sellers for me to choose from. So it's like I don't have to waste time going out to find something that's out of stock. I can just buy it and be done with it. So in a weird way, like even Best Buys. Like you go in their stores and what's the point anymore?
Well,
they don't sell music.
Well, yeah, not as much as they used to. Now they're going back to old albums because of the nostalgia crowd.
Yeah.
But even Best Buy has had to downgrade too, because Best Buy used to have a humongous store. They used to have humongous storefronts where they had everything: video games, movies, videos, music, CDs, rows after rows of CDs. And now it's nothing. It's
Well, they also, as like physical CDs, like the sales started going down. You notice what they kind of replaced them with? They expanded their home appliance sections.
Yes, that's true.
Because it used to be like, oh, we've got this one fridge or like one washer.
That is true.
And now all of a sudden it's like, we've got 6 different fridge styles that we can show you. We've got these washers, these home stereo systems that are all expanding,
which
all that.
Which is weird because I never consider Best Buy when I talk about buying a washer or dryer. Like, it never even dawned on me because I'm still stuck in that mindset of I used to go there to see the 9-monitor setup of the video games to go there. Like, I was say, you want to talk about fucking nostalgia? Was there anything better than going to the entire video game section of fucking Best Buy?
No.
See, I always hated going to Best Buy for that sort of stuff because you'd always have that one dumb person that would go over to the stereo section and start blaring music you never wanted to hear, and then no one would shut it off, but they would keep turning the volume up just to see how loud it is, and then they would walk away and leave it on. It's like, it's one of those reasons I didn't like that type of store sometimes.
See, I loved it because I still remember going there and playing games like Super Mario Kart, and you were watching it. You were watching it on the little TV right in front of you. But even if you couldn't play, you were watching that big monitor from the
just the front of the store.
Ceiling, from the front of the store, and it's like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm watching this like right now. Even if you can't play, it's like you still get to enjoy it.
I can still name off, like, the games I remember previewing at Best Buy. You had Wario, the one with the coins or something.
Wario. 6 golden coins? Super Mario Land.
There we go. Yeah, not Wario.
Coins, yeah,
it was those.
But that was Wario's first appearance.
Yeah, Battle Arena Toshiden, Jumping Flash, Castlevania 64, Zelda DX, Earthbound. My dad actually passed on buying Earthbound and a Super Nintendo because he didn't think we would like it. Silly daddy.
See, I have more nostalgia for, like, seeing and playing games hand on at like Target and stuff, because that's where like they were like the only store that had like Dreamcast hooked up and stuff like that.
Walmart had the same setup too,
and Saturn, because that's where I like the first time I ever saw Knights.
Oh yeah.
Was at a Target.
Oh,
because
wow.
no one else had that system hooked up, because you'd go to Best Buy and it was mostly Nintendo products hooked
It was
up.
a lot of NES.
Yeah.
It was
So like
excuse me.
Target was where you'd see like the odd stuff, and I remember seeing more and playing more stuff at Targets and stuff.
I got Pokemon Gold and Silver at Target the day it came out. My dad went out and bought just gold, and I remember when, because my brother and I gave him money for both, but he said, why get both when you can just, he didn't understand that you can only have one save file on it. So I remember he bought the game and we kind of threw a bitch fit and said, why? Like, we gave you the money for two! And he yelled at us, and then like an hour or two later, he's like, all right, get your fucking coat on. And we went out and got silver, and because he didn't understand that it was only one save per pack, because he's used to the NES.
Oh, where it's three. You have 3 files.
The NES. God damn it! I can't stop
What is wrong
saying
with you? For
NES.
God's sakes, it's the NES.
Fuck me.
Nintendo already told you. It's officially the NES. Stop calling it the NES.
God damn it. Way to fuck up my old childhood, Nintendo.
But yes, the regular NES cartridges had the 3 save files.
For some games, yeah.
For some games. Or for some games, didn't they have like up to 4?
Yeah,
Maybe,
I think so.
Oh, well, maybe Super Nintendo games did, but they had at least like 3 on the NES.
I feel like Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior 1 were the only ones that had only one save slot. No, I think even Dragon Warrior had more than one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah, but Final Fantasy was
only had one.
Yep,
for sure.
But Star Tropics, Star Tropics 2,
Zelda's 3.
Zelda, all the
3.
other Dragon Warriors had 3 or 4. So yeah, he didn't quite get it.
Or they were all password saves. So.
Right.
But that's so funny. I completely forgot that even like Walmart. I remember going to Walmart with my mom, and she would just leave me in the video game section. I would be playing like the PlayStation.
Even FuncoLand had setups for stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I remember my parents got yelled at by the store people because they left us there to just play games while they went to, oh my god, what was it, Farmco or whatever, just down.
Farm and Fleet.
No. It was like Farmco, PHARM. Farm something. It was Farm something.
Oh, it was like a pharmacy type place or something.
It was kind of like a Walgreens.
Oh,
it was in that same area as FuncoLand. There was like Petland, and then there was Farmco right there, something like that. Famco. I don't remember what the exact name was.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. But yeah, they would leave us in FuncoLand, and they came to pick us up, and they kicked us out. Like, we were sitting outside the store, and my parents were like, "What the hell are you doing out here?" They said they kicked us out. So yeah, my parents went in there and gave them a thing. But I mean, to be fair, they're not a daycare.
They're not a daycare. They knew you weren't gonna be buying shit.
So we did a lot, actually. That FuncoLand fucked us up, and it was where I first experienced label changes. We bought Shining in the Darkness. I think I remember telling you this. I wanted Shining in the Darkness for the longest time, because I remember playing Shining Force 1 and 2, loved them. I'm like, Shining in the Darkness, cool, dungeon crawler. We got home, it was Wanderers of Ys. It was Ys 3. But it had the Shining in the Darkness like shell. So my parents were pissed off. They went back, and yeah, that was back when they replaced the board.
Yeah.
It wasn't label change per se, but it was because I think you got more for Shining in the Darkness than you did Ys 3 for trade-in.
Well, it wasn't even just that, but there were a few examples of that happening at Blockbuster as well too, where somebody had rented a game. It was like TMNT 3. And when they popped it into their system, it was Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt. And so it's like, people would maybe, it wasn't for like the resale or anything like that, it was just because you basically just bought a game for $2 or $3 and you got rid of a game that you didn't want anymore. So therefore, yeah, all you had to do is just literally pull the old board out and put it into your game and put the other board into the Blockbuster game, and that was it.
All I gotta say is, how's Ren and Stimpy, Paul?
Yeah, that's right, you guys. You should watch the Musha debacle.
I hate you all.
Paul bought quote-unquote Musha at GameStop, and it turned out to be Ren and Stimpy.
That was...
Oh, man, that was a good one.
That was the last classic, like, retro game that I bought at GameStop. I was so pissed off. I didn't buy another single retro game at GameStop, and now they don't even have them at that storefront anymore.
Nope, they don't. I don't think they have met a lot of them. I don't see them anywhere.
No,
which is I'm about to say that didn't last too fucking long, did it?
No, it really didn't. So. And it was nice while it lasted because it did kind of feel a little bit nostalgic, but I mean at the same time it just
Yeah.
Actually, there's another store. I don't know how nostalgic you guys were for it. Do you like Hollywood Video when they opened their Game Crazies?
Oh, I miss Game Crazy.
You silly bastard.
Like when they fenced off like half the corner of the store.
Yeah.
And then they eventually slowly kind of became their own thing as Hollywood Videos diminished.
Yeah.
And like I remember going in there and like just seeing the crate, like the bins in the middle with all like the different accessories and stuff that the used ones.
They had fantastic prices. There were so many different Nintendo games that I was able to get there, and for the longest time, Bomberman 2 for the NES was like the most expensive game that I had paid at that time, and it was like $12.99. Game is now like $125, but it's just like it's crazy. I have so many good memories of that place. That was where I found, not only on the Xbox, but on the PlayStation 2, I found at 2 different occasions Marvel vs. Capcom 2, when that was a super rare game.
Yeah, I remember that. Like you go from like this game you never see it anywhere to all of a sudden, why am I seeing 10 copies of this game?
Well, no, because I got it for both the Xbox and the PlayStation 2 back in the day when the Xbox version was about like $120 and the PS2 version was like $150 or so. But I ended up paying $29.99 for each copy.
Get out.
And on top of that, I ended up paying more for Marvel Ultimate Alliance on the Xbox. I paid $34.99 for that game. And I was just like, it killed me because when I did buy Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I thought, I paid $30 for this. Which means that Game Crazy offered them, like, I don't know how much they offered them, but it was significantly less than $30 because they still had to make a profit. So I felt terrible for whoever had given it to them.
No, you didn't. You were just
I was just elated.
Idiot.
I was just elated. I'm like, I can't believe I just found this here.
I do remember you bought me my copy of Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
I did.
At GameStop, and $50. That's what the price tag's still on there.
Because that was after the game had fallen in price. And that's when we started seeing like 4 or 5 copies of it. Like, we were seeing it everywhere.
Guess how much that game goes for now, complete?
On the PlayStation 2?
2.
I would say 60 in the 60s.
Right on the head, $60.
Yeah.
So it's really funny, like that. Well, that was another thing too. Like Xenoblade Chronicles was the same way. Although that one was released by only GameStop.
That one was
mistaken.
like U.S. publishing rights were only at GameStop, so that's different.
So after it released, like you saw it nowhere because it was only at GameStop.
Yeah.
Well, they ended up coming back and they wanted $80 for this game because they knew couldn't get it anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So $80 for that. Well, they realized that they might have shot themselves in the foot because you'd see like 8 copies of that game for $80. No one's gonna fucking spend that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now it's slowly dipping down to like now it's back down to like 40 or 50, I think.
Oh, finally.
But that's.
Mm-hmm.
But we've gotten a lot off topic.
No, it still falls within the same nostalgia.
That's just talking about Game Crazy. I miss Game Crazy. I remember being so sad when GameStop stopped selling their retro games because they were just focusing on GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. They wanted to just keep the games at the time, like the newest current gen games. That's all they wanted. So they didn't want to clutter up their store with losing all the space on the retro stuff. And it was just at around that time where Game Crazy came onto the scene, and I was sad for about a week because then I was like, thank God Game Crazy's here. Like, Game Crazy is selling the retro games. And then Game Crazy did the same thing in 2007. They started trying to get rid of their old retro stock. And that's when the whole 3 for $10 thing started happening, where you would start seeing all the classic games. I picked up Secret of Mana, 3 for $10.
Wow, you fucker.
3 for $10, so I paid $3.33 for it.
Game Crazy is actually where I picked up Chrono Trigger and Shining Force 3 for about $30 or $40 a piece.
$24.99 for Chrono Trigger.
That's
I remember
right.
that. I don't remember the other one.
I think it was about $30 for.
But
Final
I
Fantasy
paid
3.
about $100 for Steel Battalion there.
Oh, that's awesome.
God,
That's
Steel
expensive game.
Battalion.
Yeah. But yeah, and then they started changing their getting rid of their current or their retro stock, and literally within a couple of years of them doing that, they went out of business.
Yeah.
So,
but to stick in the vein of fall of the mall, I almost feel like this kind of all started when. Okay, so do you remember going into like Pick and Save or Piggly Wiggly and seeing the rental areas they would have there? 4-star video, I think they were called back then.
4-star, and then it became Family Video.
Yep. But that was where
they had 4-star video, but the ones like inside like grocery stores and stuff like that was their own stuff. That wasn't 4-star video.
No,
that was just
what is the
some of them did.
When the one up here was built on 18th, it was 4-star video. They leased a spot in the front of the store.
I remember seeing the clamshells had 4-star video, and I remember the 4
gotcha.
stars.
Okay, maybe that's why, because the one by my Pick and Save was not. They were not affiliated with 4-star video.
Okay, but that to me is where almost I never picked up on this at the time, but when those started to phase out, where you'd start seeing those go away, it's like I almost wonder if this is kind of when that whole idea of, well, now there's different avenues and things, so like things are changing.
Yeah.
You know, it just kind of took a longer time for malls in particular, but that felt like.
Well, to be honest, that is not quite the same, because I think video stores went from having to lease space inside of another store to being standalone stores, then disappearing. So it's a slightly different thing.
Blockbuster was in that same area at the time too.
They went from being like they rented it within a store where I don't know if like the store owned them, or like I said, they leased the space, but when they went out on their own and then they started that's when their financial stuff started happening. So I think it's a little bit different than when malls started kind of failing.
No, I suppose that's true. It was something I just thought was worth noting. Because I know a lot of people remember that kind of shit. Just going into like Pick and Save and being able to rent a movie or something, or rent games.
Multiple times I rented Super Mario RPG from Pick and Save, actually. Not from Blockbuster, actually.
Before I even bought before we got Nintendo 64, like for Christmas one year, we used to go in and rent them.
Yeah.
At Blockbuster, yeah.
Well, we did it at Family Video.
Oh, you could do it there too, yeah.
And we'd get like Mario 64 and then like 1 or 2 other games, and we would rent the system and bring it home before we ever were able to afford buying them.
I remember Blockbuster used to charge, I think it was a flat rate, but it was like $14.99 for the weekend to rent a system.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, actually, this is a good segue then into the next part of the podcast. Holy shit, that was a long first segment. is arcades, and just kind of almost the fall of the American arcade. Because, I mean, being able to rent the game, and especially with like the NES and NES, the Super NES, that just sounds stupid.
Well, no, because then it's just SNES.
And that's true. Well, yeah, that's true. The SNES. Genesis and those, it's like arcades almost kind of became not obsolete, but there was you could play the games at home.
To be honest, what killed arcades more than being able to rent and stuff is when home console hardware became strong enough to rival arcades. I mean, if you look at like the NES era, and then look at what games were in the arcade, and look at the disparity between how they looked.
There was a big difference.
It was huge.
And then as like PS2 and stuff started creeping up, and they were outperforming arcades graphics wise, that's what was killing the arcade.
Yeah.
Not so much we don't want to go there and play, but it's why go there and pay someone else when I can just go, rent a game that's superior and play it at home on a better system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I don't necessarily think that like PlayStation and PlayStation 2 games were necessarily superior, because there were still games in arcades that were a lot better.
I suppose, what I mean by superior is it was more of a variety than what you could get in an arcade.
I suppose that's true. You couldn't play Final Fantasy in an arcade.
Mm-hmm. Arcade, there was really only so many types of things you could do. You had beat 'em ups.
Yep.
You had
fighting games,
shooters. Which you had shooters, and then you had like the old school Galagas and Pac-Mans and stuff like that.
Yeah, classic.
Maybe like the occasional golf, but that's really it. There's not a lot of the variety you could do at an arcade like you can do at home.
There was fighting games too. Fighting games are big.
Yeah,
we did say fighting games.
Oh, you did?
Of course we did. Way to pay attention.
My bad.
No, but you're right. But I mean, I spent a lot of time in arcades as a kid.
Too.
Aladdin's Castle in particular. That was my mecca right there. Jesus Christ, Tokyo Wars was the one that stands out the most. It was a complete enclosure. I mean, it was $1 to play this fucking game, and of course, as a kid, you were only given like a few bucks, so that was maybe 12 tokens. Most games were generally a token. There were some that were 2, and you felt kind of naughty putting 2 in. You know, you're like, this might eat all my shit, but damn, Time Crisis 2, 50 cents? Let's fucking do it. House of the Dead? Fuck you. 50 cents, let's do it. God damn it, I'm dead. Like, the quarter eaters.
Oh, yeah.
Where those Tokyo Wars was a whole $1.
Yeah.
But goddamn, was that awesome, because it had, like, the rumble in the seats and the surround sound, and you shot other tanks. It felt incredible. Cyber Sled was another one that was like that. Virtual On.
Yeah, I was going to say
Holy
Virtual On was
shit.
one of those ones I remember going and playing, because the first time I saw it, the cabinet was huge.
Yeah.
Because it was the dual stick, and each person had to have dual sticks to play. So it was
awesome.
a massive cabinet for the time.
And that's why Time Crisis 2 was my favorite, because you played 2 players, the same as Time Crisis 1, but it was 2 full setups right next to each other, cooperative.
Yeah.
One player played as the red guy, one played as the blue. It was essentially the same game, but from different perspectives. It was fucking amazing. And, like, man, so arcades now are really almost a shell of their former selves as well.
Well, it's not even just that. Like, it almost felt like there was a lot of, and I don't even think that they would be considered arcades, like, per se, but it's like there was a lot of places where there were arcades where you may not expect them nowadays. Like, I remember when I was a kid, there was a couple times where we would travel and we would go to, like, we would stay in a hotel. And I always remember the first thing I would do is I would look to see if there was an arcade somewhere. Inside the hotel, because there was usually an area where they would have like a collection of 3 or 4 games.
Yep.
Yeah. It would be by the pool, or it would just be off by the pool, or off of that area. But I remember playing in a hotel in, I think it was in Indiana. We went somewhere in Indiana, and I remember finding the X-Men arcade game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so it's like one of those things where you just don't expect to see an arcade there, but yet there was. Or you would go into a convenience store.
Or some restaurants.
Or some restaurant would
Pizza
have.
Hut.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what is it?
Fireside.
Yeah.
We used to go there. We went there every like Christmas for our family get together, and they used to have this one like alcove where that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was all these arcade games.
I remember for the first
and I used
time.
to go in there, and when we were there, I'd get some money from my parents, and I'd go play the arcade games while like all the adults were in the other room talking.
Yeah, that was where I first played Sky Kid. Actually, they had a table of Sky Kid there.
God, what a treasure!
Oh yeah, no, it was great. It was great.
Fireside was where they had one of the cocktail ones where it was you sit on both sides. They had like Dig Dug, Donkey Kong.
They still have Pac-Man, if I'm not mistaken.
If I'm not, you might be right. They might have one of the stand-up ones where it's like
I think
Rally X.
No, it's
I think
sit-down-
they still have the
sit-down
sit-down one, I think.
Is it really?
Cabinet,
Yeah.
Oh my god! But I remember Pizza Hut. Gatormson's was a big one. That's where I
Bowling
first played
alleys-
Raystorm.
Yeah, bowling alleys were a big
Yeah,
one.
Bowling Alley was a big one.
Bowling alleys, Thompson's bowling alley. Yeah, I remember spending so much time. They had Die Hard Arcade there. They had the what?
Die Hard Arcade.
Actually, I think
I
that
remember that
place
one.
there was the first time I think I ever saw. Was it Revolution X?
Yes.
Aerosmith
Revolution
game
X.
or whatever. Who was
Yeah,
it?
Aerosmith.
Revolution X, the Aerosmith game,
Okay, yeah.
where
It was a
music
shooter.
is the weapon.
Yeah, but it was a shooter.
It was a
It made
shooter.
no
You
sense.
shoot CDs.
And it
Those are
was
your
like a
bullets.
machine gun. I
Yeah.
remember the gun
Yeah.
for it. And that's what made arcades great, is you had those silent scope.
sniper one.
Where it was the monitor, but to actually see anything you were sniping, you looked through the sight, and there was another monitor in there.
Yeah.
But it was zoomed in. It was awesome. Revolution X was another one where there was a machine gun,
Yeah.
and you would shoot with
Terminator.
that. Terminator. Oh God, T2 Judgment Day. Get the fuck
See,
out of
and
this room, bitch! I loved it. I loved the arcade.
See, and my favorite games growing up, then like in the arcades, I loved fighting games. So it's like Mortal Kombat. The first time that I ever played Mortal Kombat 4, or when I first found Killer Instinct, or Killer Instinct 2.
For me, MVC2?
For me, the fighting game was always X-Men vs. Street Fighter.
X-Men vs.
Or
Street
Children
Fighter,
of the
yeah.
Atom.
Oh yeah, Children of the Atom was one of those very early
Oh,
ones too. That
suck my
actually
dick.
predates
I know.
X-Men vs. Street
Yeah.
Fighter, yeah.
Fun fact, I got X-Men Children of the Atom through. Do you remember when Sega Saturn would do what they called the bootleg sampler? It was a pack in some games or the system itself that would show. It was like demos. It was an entire game dedicated to demos or movies of games that were either out already or upcoming. Well, we opened one of the games that had a bootleg sampler in it. That bootleg sampler was X-Men Children of the Atom, not the sampler.
Oh.
We were like, what? Like, we were blown away. It was an actual game. Like, somebody fucked up where it came from and just put a real game in there. It was ridiculous. So that's how I got Children of the Atom.
Oh, nice.
Was from a bootleg sampler that wasn't a bootleg sampler. It was really weird.
Well,
but, yeah.
even just that, I mean, kind of digressing a little bit, but do you remember, like, the samplers and the demo discs and
There
the
were
PlayStation
actually
discs? Like,
certain magazines I would buy because they had
just
the demo
because they
discs.
came with a demo disc,
like
yeah.
EGM and
What was the other big one?
God, I can't remember.
It was like
there was, like-
Electronics Monthly or something?
That was
Electronic,
EGM.
that's
Oh, that
EGM,
was my bad.
Electronics Gaming Monthly.
Yeah, 'cause I
Game
remember
Pro.
there
Game
were-
Pro was a big one, too.
Yeah,
Game
there we
Game
go.
Pro used to
And
pack
the
in a
only
lot.
other one I remember buying was Tips and Tricks.
Oh, Tips and Tricks,
Ooh,
yeah.
baby.
Game Players, and then it changed to Ultra Game Players, and then that one ended because I used to have a subscription to it, and then it changed to Next Generation, which was actually something completely different, but they allowed your subscription to go to this magazine. But yeah, there was even I remember Pizza Hut actually had a demo disc of their own too, because I remember
Yes, they did.
yeah, they did. I had it.
Oh my God, I
I'll
can't
have to
believe you
check.
remember that.
I'll have to check, but that was actually the first time I had ever played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, because that game, that demo, was on the Pizza Hut demo disc.
Now that I'm thinking about it, the way I first played the Blood Omen Legacy of Kain was a demo disc from a PC magazine that I brought over to Mish's house, and we played it on his computer in the basement. And that's also, like, we used to play Duke Nukem 3D and stuff, too.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Duke Nukem.
Man, that brings back a lot of
So-
memories, arcades. But
Yeah.
now, unfortunately, arcades have been on a decline because, like you said, why go to an arcade when you have rivaled graphics at home?
See, there is a couple of arcade styles I would have loved to have seen come over here that Japan had. They had these big, like, booths, like the one, the tank game you were talking about, where
Yeah.
you can, like, sit in it, but it was a Gundam fighting game where you're sitting in, like, a cockpit, essentially, and you're fighting not only just other people in the arcade, but online in an arcade machine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And that you would have, like, a card that you would save your info on.
I remember that.
And you would have basically an ID card that all of your information saved to, and you could continue your stats and stuff like that.
One of the Tekken games, I believe.
I was
did
going
that.
to say, the later iterations of the Tekken series actually started doing that.
The
That
tournament ones, I think.
Tekken Tag Tournament, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was the first one that I had ever seen where I saw some guy putting in his card, and when he left the machine, he pulled his card out, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Is it like some kind of like a free play that he's got or something
Credit
like that?
card,
Yeah, no, it was
ching.
but it was the card that was actually keeping track of his records, his win losses and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's really cool, but at the same time, that's got to be super expensive to do that kind of stuff, which you don't see that at too many.
I think that's another big reason why, like, arcades, if you go and look at them now, there isn't really much past what there was back then.
No.
With the exception of, like, if you go to places like I said, Japan, where they still have a culture for that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, like, producing what would be considered a AAA arcade game these days, and then trying to make your profit back from it is probably non-existent.
Yeah, too costly.
Honestly, I wonder if that's based on just how the audience is too, because you look at a lot of the audience of, well, look at like Call of Duties and Fortnite and all that kind of shit. You really can't do that in an arcade.
Actually,
Why would you?
Fortnite, I think you could. If you did like the Gundam thing where it's not only local but online, I think Fortnite could actually lend its style to it better than anything else.
I suppose you're right, yeah. But now it's like you go to Dave & Buster's is a good example. Like most of the games there are more of like ticket redemption games.
The carnival,
like
skee ball,
gimmick
and
Redemption games. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird to me why anyone would. I mean, I get their fun. I like a good skee ball game, or like most people, or like the hoops, but like that's not an arcade to me.
No,
it feels like a carnival thing.
And
It's like a.
It's not an arcade game.
No.
To me.
So it just seems weird that that's how kind of arcades have what they've become
Well,
in the States.
Well, unfortunately, that's what they also started as. You got to remember that.
That's true.
They started off as like little carnival games like that, and then became video game things.
Yeah.
And now they're going back.
Yeah.
So.
And that's actually an interesting thing that I thought of is like retro arcades are almost kind of making a resurgence. Because, I mean, look at up here, you just had Up Down that opened, and I'm pretty sure that's like a retro arcade.
Well, you also have places like, what is it, the bar? 8-bit?
8-bit.
Yeah, 8-bit arcade.
You have Garcade
up
there, where it's a lot of retro game, like
it's a
Tapper.
bar slash.
Well,
like,
and it's funny because it seems like the resurgence that you're talking about, like it's people our age. It's the people who want to game and drink or something like that. So they're combining it with like a bar and an arcade. I don't necessarily think that a resurgence is coming back because you don't see like an arcade game in like a convenience store. You don't see an area dedicated in a hotel anymore with games and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it could be a start of things to come.
But it might be a start of things to come, but I don't think that it's ever going to reach the levels that it used to in the past.
Probably not
I
here.
think arcades, I think, are going to end up being relegated to things like Twin Galaxies and
Fun Spot.
Fun spot. Yeah, the big places, Gallop.
Where it's basically not just a place, it's almost more of a museum or mausoleum to what they were.
Mausoleum.
Well, it's not.
Good way to put
it honestly, it's more like a museum, Because
it is. Like I said,
like that,
museum or mausoleum, because like it's a dead art style. That's why like I can't remember what. There was an actual museum that had the video game exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's what that style is actually just becoming. It's a look where it started, it got us to here type thing.
Well, I mean, if you think about it too, like I had mentioned before, look at the audience change. I mean, now a lot of old arcade games had no end. It was just you played, it would accrue a high score. It's not a thing anymore. No, most people like younger than us, like our generation and back, or forward, I guess would be the better way to put it. They want a goal. They need something to attain.
There's only one way I can see arcades making a resurgence, but it wouldn't be in the way that we knew them. Have you seen the augmented reality arcades?
No.
So it's basically you've been to indoor laser tag before, right?
Of course.
Now imagine
Discovery Zone.
Imagine indoor laser tag, but it's the walls and everything you see around you are just blank. It's just like a shell of like a building layout. But then you put on a VR headset and you're inside of an entire world, and all of the walls of the building are programmed into the game, and you walk around. There are actually, I can't remember what company is doing it. That's the next step of a arcade. And like the one I had seen videos for was you have a headset, you have gloves, and basically something like a computer running on your back for it. And as you're walking around, you can see like a sword on the wall. Grab it and use that in like the dungeon you're walking through, or like you could have like a fake gun in your hand and you could go around doing it that way. That's the only way I could see arcades coming back.
And
it would be expensive.
And I could see that happening though, because I actually when PlayStation 4 started announcing that they were going to do VR and all this stuff, I thought, whatever, it's just VR. It's going to go down the way of 3D movies where it's just a fad. It's going to be a passing thing. And it has caught on a lot more than I thought it was going to.
Most people also forget, this isn't the first time VR has been around.
Oh, God.
There were those old arcade games in like late 80s, early 90s. The VR circle,
full immersion.
You would stand in that circle and have those bulky headsets on.
I remember that.
Look at Tokyo Wars
or Virtual Boy.
Some of the ones, like there were arcade games, like the entire enclosure, and there were monitors that were all around you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're right. This isn't the first time that's happened.
I wouldn't necessarily call the Virtual Boy VR.
Well, that was supposed to be the home VR.
That was supposed to be the home VR.
But it was garbage.
It was supposed to.
I'm not saying it was good, but it's what it was supposed to be.
It was supposed to give you that illusion of depth, but let's be honest.
And what's
it just gave you a headache.
I honestly,
red. Who chooses red?
I love Gunpei Yokoi. He was the guy who actually created the Virtual Boy. I wish that he could, that people would see that he had done so much more good than just creating the than creating the VR, or the Virtual Boy. But that's literally what he's going to be remembered for.
Yeah. So you might be right, but I can't see that ever really taking off without the expense. I honestly don't think it would be cost right. Unless they could make... Because, I mean, you're calling a computer on your back?
Well, no.
They would not allow kids to do that.
No, actually, because the computers they use, it's not like hauling around the desktop.
Well, no, I know that.
It's like hauling around a small
like a
backpack.
netbook?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're powerful enough to where
yeah.
you can do that. The only problem right now is battery power.
Yeah.
So right
that's
now,
true.
you like all the ones I've seen, you are still tethered slightly, and that would be the only big issue is we need better battery sources to do stuff like that.
And to be honest, I would only
Or better wireless charging that you can constantly charge while going through the place.
I would only see them allowing adults to do it. I mean, if I was running a company and I had that kind of technology going around, I would not want some 4-year-old running around with that kind of shit on his back.
Oh,
the
shit.
liability's too high.
Yeah.
It would not be good.
I mean, insurance would work for that, so...
Right, but still, it's...
Yeah.
But again,
No
that's
way
also
how.
one of those things. Like I said, the thing I'd seen, it's a work in progress type thing. It's not like they're a mass success yet. I mean, it's not like indoor laser tag ever become a massive thing either.
It was for a little while.
No, there
Like I
weren't
said,
very many
you
places.
remember...
No, it was a
what was,
novelty. It was a novelty.
There was a store dedicated just to laser tag, and I don't remember what it was called. It was like Discovery Zone, kind of.
Yeah, I know it was down in Illinois, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. Yeah, I
yeah.
know what you're talking about. I went to it once,
Yep.
and
Same with me.
well, it was not like I don't know. Maybe just because the equipment was broken, it just didn't seem to work properly.
Well, laser tag might not have been that high of a
Oh,
thing
and
back
I know
then.
there's another place like in Milwaukee where they set up like it's set up in like a warehouse type deal
Yeah.
where you have the big heavy guns and stuff like that, and you've got the
vest
chest plate,
and-
the vest
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, but I still think it's more of a novelty.
Laser
than
Mountain?
anything.
Does that sound right? Something Mountain, I thought it was called. Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
I couldn't tell you.
No.
Actually, there was another place where arcades was like Discovery Zone or
Oh, yeah.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh well,
places
Chuck E.
like
Cheese,
that.
That was basically. It's almost like it was an arcade, and pizza was like the afterthought.
And it was great.
Well,
their
well,
pizza
great,
wasn't
but
great.
their pizza wasn't. So great.
That's how you know it was an afterthought.
Yeah.
The
Come on,
food
man.
was just a
So-
side effect for the
But
side
yeah,
thing for the parents.
Yeah, it was actually Nolan Bushnell. It was he's behind the Chuck E. Cheese though.
Really?
Oh yeah, that was his baby. So.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was dedicated to like being an arcade where you could also eat and kind of make it a family event. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from there, I guess we'll move on to the last segment, which is just memories of going to Aladdin's Castle or Paul's Arcade, which it became known as later, but I guess we kind of already touched on all that shit.
We kind of did, but yeah,
Yeah.
we can kind of go back into it. I mean, what are your memories, your most vivid memory? If you had to just pluck out one, what was your most vivid memory from Aladdin's Castle?
Having enough skee ball tickets to actually get a prize.
Really?
I know it had nothing to do with
No,
the
that's fine.
arcade
But
stuff,
what was the prize that you had gotten?
dude, it was something stupid.
it was a
Like,
pencil topper.
it was like, no, I think it was like one of those slap bracelets. You remember that was a thing?
Oh yeah.
It was one of those, because to be honest, everything in that, I remember seeing like Nintendos and shit up on the Game Boys. 40,000 tickets, which would cost you $70, $140, which you could just buy the damn thing for less. I don't remember how much. That was just some arbitrary numbers.
Yeah, because it was more like you had to spend like $400 or $500.
But that was always the
That's
gimmick.
not true because you could cheat at some of those games.
Well, you
so.
could, but as a kid myself, I didn't know how to cheat at those games. So therefore, yeah, you may have. Shut up.
The
Well-
basketball one, you just jiggle the cord.
Well, if you remember, they had like the light tower ones, whereas the tower would go up and you had to stop it on the light.
Yeah.
A person from work actually won a Vita off of those.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Not just one. You won two. You won
Wow.
2 Vitas off of those light things. It was
Holy
crazy.
crap.
But I honestly never remember getting enough tickets to get anything noteworthy. But honestly, I think that was my biggest, most vivid memory, was to finally being good enough at skee ball to sink the hondos to win enough tickets to get shit off the tray. Getting candy and fucking stuff like that, and just being elated.
Yeah.
Because I was really young, like 4 or 5 years old. So like those are some of my early memories of going to the mall.
That was an accomplishment.
Yeah,
At that age, it's like you felt accomplished. It didn't matter that you won a slap bracelet. It's like, I won this.
I got candy that my parents didn't want me to have. Oh man, because I remember that's where I first started getting nerds or whatever it was back then. You know, because you got the little
nerds
boxes.
were around back then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that to me stood out more than I'd say some of the games.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing the Revolution X's and all that, but
Yeah.
man, fuck it, getting that candy off the things. Because I always just remember sitting there staring at the prizes, just coveting them. Man, I wanted those prizes, even though they were stupid in hindsight, like a fucking eraser of somebody, and you're like, it's stupid as hell now, but man, those were great.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
So, well, Kevin, why don't you go first?
For me, I'd probably have to say, going into it with, you know, my dad and him actually playing some of the games with me, even though he fucking hated them. He was never, like, he's from the, you know, that generation. Video games just weren't his thing, but he tolerated going in there with all the noise and all the kids running around.
Rats.
And he tolerated going in there just so I could go play some games while my mom and stuff were shopping. So.
Yeah. Well, my biggest memory was actually, I mean, I was already an adult by the time my biggest memory came around, but I remember after seeing The King of Kong.
Of course.
After seeing The King of Kong, I was, like, obsessed with, like, kill screens and, like, officially, like, beating a game or something like that it's like
beating an arcade
beating an arcade game that I didn't even know was beatable. And I was like, I knew I was decent enough at Galaga, but
I was there for this.
You were there for it, but I also did cheat slightly. I didn't cheat, but I used...
How can you cheat slightly but not cheat, Paul?
Because I used a trick in the game that they had thrown in the game, but you still had to be decent at it in order to get to through all the screens.
Dude, that's the equivalent of saying using the whistles in Mario 3 is cheating. It's not cheating if it's built into the game.
To be fair...
Then if it's built into the game, then I technically didn't cheat.
Cheating, to me, is using something outside.
Up, down, down, left, right, A, B,
that's
start.
built into the
I
game,
didn't
it's
do
not
that.
cheating.
I didn't do that.
But that's something you had to know. It wasn't something presented to you. This is something you could have possibly stumbled on.
Yeah, correct. But anyways... Using a trick in the game, I was able to put in 1 quarter, or 1 Paul's Arcade token, actually.
I guess.
Yeah, and I was able to make it through all 256 screens of Galaga. I played for over 2 hours on 1 token.
It was almost like 3 hours, buddy.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was a long time.
I remember it was over 2 hours. I knew that I was there a long time.
I finished Marvel vs. Capcom twice.
Oh, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That's the one that
twice.
they did, yeah.
I must have burned like $20 just waiting for you to get done.
And I spent 25 cents.
Yeah. But no, that was an awesome thing. I was happy I was there for that, to watch you get a kill screen.
And I wanted to see a kill screen for the first time, and I had read like online that there's like certain different like dip switches where you may not have gotten a kill screen. It may have just looped around back to stage 1. So it would just kind of go for infinite. And so that in that particular one, I didn't get a kill screen. It just looped back around to stage 1, but still, like, to me, that was my kill screen. I was like, I got this game all the way to the end, and it had to loop back around to stage 1. I'm like, I can't believe this.
In case somebody doesn't know, what is the trick?
So the trick, I don't even remember how to do it anymore, but it's almost like, okay, so you are supposed to, in the first stage, you kill certain enemies, and then you just basically park yourself in one of the sides so that you're out of, like, the range of, like, all the enemies and their bullets and stuff like that, and you just wait there for literally, like, 10 minutes. And after that, all the enemies just stop shooting you. For the remainder of the game, they stop shooting you. However, it doesn't make it... Well, it does make it a little bit less difficult, but it does make it easier because they will still, as they're coming onto the screen, they'll kamikaze you, and they will go faster and faster as they normally do, and it doesn't stop their patterns, their movements and stuff like that. It just stops them from shooting at you. And so that was how I ended up being able to make it through there, but still... It was
pretty impressive.
It was difficult. It wasn't a walk in the park by any means, but definitely that was how I ended up doing it.
That's
but
awesome.
That still is my golden moment in the arcade. In Paul's Arcade, I was able to do that. I was able to get An unofficial kill screen on Galaga. And
Said-
it felt awesome.
This was shortly after we graduated high school, wasn't it? Like 2004, 2005?
No, because it was after I had seen The King of Kong, and I had saw that in either 2006 or 2007.
That's right. It was about a year or two after I moved out.
Yeah.
Because I got my job at where I work in 2006.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it was
yeah.
after that, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
What a trip down memory lane, man.
Man, those were the good old days.
The good old days. So why don't you guys tell us about your good old days going to malls or arcades or your favorite arcade game or your experiences in general just going to malls as a child, looking through toy things and board games or whatever.
Or just going to any kind of store. I mean, if you remember going to Target or Walmart as a kid and just walking down that video game aisle and remember seeing like the placards, the cards that you had to bring up to the counter to say, "Yep, I want this game," because they didn't have the physical copies, or they had to then use the keys to go into the cases to get you the game. So
that was a Toys R Us thing.
That was a Toys R Us.
The wall of tickets.
Yeah, the wall of tickets was a Toys R Us thing, but then they also had Walmart kind of did a similar thing too, where they just had they had like tickets that you just had to bring up to the register and stuff like that. I remember that, but yeah, let us know what your memories are, what your favorite arcade game was growing up, what stores you miss most, and what stores you don't miss. I mean, there are some stores that are out of business, and I mean,
No worse for the wear.
no worse for the wear. So, yeah, let us know.
Shoot us up with a couple of topics you'd like us to discuss for future Powercasts. Oh boy,
Powercast about the NAS.
It's not a podcast. It's a Powercast.
It is a Powercast.
Let us know anything you'd like us to discuss.
Yeah, if you guys have general questions for us, let us know. We'll answer them. It's a lot easier to answer a question than to necessarily beat a video game. So
Definitely.
if you have a question, we will definitely answer it.
Go to powertripgaming.tv. It'll take you directly to the YouTube channel where you can watch us tackle the NES collection.
And also the side quest of games like the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo and other titles that we played, as well as listening to other past Powercasts.
That's right. Kevin, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, eat me.
Well said, Kevin.
I am
well said.
I'm pretty fucking hungry, actually. A lot of leftovers. So, I don't know an ending to these.
I don't think... Do we even have anything?
The last ending we had is we fucked it up.
Now you're listening with power.
Now you're listening with power, but I called it a podcast. You're like, way to fuck it up. It's a Powercast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is.
And then I said, now you're playing with Powercast.
Now you're playing with power. Yeah.
So I ballsed it up, too.
So that'll do it for another PTG Powercast.
So that's another Powercast, a PTG Powercast. Now you're listening with power.
Fucking echo in here.
See, now we're just getting into the Dingo and the baby shit again.
Baby shit.
You're listening with power. Power, power. Power! Power Star!
Yes! Nailed it! Fucking nailed it!